catchy twilight kind. They bring me right back home to a far-off fading town. Smell of rain struck suddenly, swinging softly through the air. I'm fastened to your love in a time when love was there, tangled up below the sky. In each other we were found forever. Will I remember sinking deep into the ground? 4 feet from the fire and the short hills of the land, sipping up your face, so I know I found my gem. I recall the summer day, now we find ourselves in fall. Our clothes hit the ground, our bodies stand tall. The song of a passing train pounds gently in my ears, roused by the sound of your breath.
The volunteers made them for us.
Catchy twilight eyes when I see myself in them, sipping up your face, so I when I'm left to die by the side of Magdalene, and everyone will judge that I've wronged in the meanwhile. But for now I'm deep in your eyes, the catchy twilight kind. They bring me right back home to a far-off fading time.
The railway snow working, is it?
One, two, three.
Okay, 4, 5, 6. Have a good day, guys.
Thank you.
Here. Oh, yeah, they all train.
We did a pit village through the wall and kill the baby. So, and then we're replacing with the Lancashire boiler, so the boiler room will be more safe. Just primarily, they're just testing for the cages.
Tipping on the floor out like that. Right, okay, so how many of you lot have not been down our mine before? Right, how many of you have? And can remember it? Somebody comes out. Right, okay, well, the mine that we are about to go into today is a real coal mine. So this is not a mock-up that was made for the purpose of the museum or anything like that. It is the genuine article. We actually went out, we found an existing mine, and we actually built our entire museum around it, which when you think about it is actually quite impressive. So the mine itself is called Mahogany Drift. Originally it opened way back in 1855 and it continued working right up until 1958. So it did have a fairly long productive life when it was in use. However, after 100 years of being mined, as you can imagine, it had got to the point where it had pretty much run its course. It had been digging it for 100 years. They'd got all of the good quality coal out of it by that point. They'd got their money's worth, and what was left down there wasn't the best of quality. And it was around this time that the owners of the mine got together, figure out what they were going to do with the mine, and they decided that what was left down there wasn't worth bothering with, and as a result, they decided the best thing to do for the mine was to wind things up, close it down, and then it was subsequently abandoned. Now, it remained like that until 1979. By that point, the museum had arrived, and we decided we wanted to reopen the mine. Now, we didn't want to reopen it as a working mine. What we wanted was an exhibit. So when we head down there today, we are going into a mine which is effectively frozen in time. The year is 1913. So, I'm going to give you a little bit of help with your history at this point. Have you all heard of the Titanic?
Yes.
Well, it sank last year. Has anyone heard of World War One? Well, you shouldn't have, because it hasn't started yet. That's still to come, that's next year. Still got a lot to look forward to, and I'm sure it'll be over by Christmas. So, two major historical events here, and we are right in between the two of them, so it does give you an idea of the sort of time period that we're actually going into. So, when we head into the mine, you are going to find that the tunnel is going to drop to a height of 4.5 foot. That basically means if you're taller than that, you will have to duck at some point. I don't know what you're whinging about. Look at these guys. Yes, some of them are going to have to duck a little bit more than others. Now, we do recommend that you walk between the tracks. It is the tallest point of the tunnel after all. There are two groups down there at the moment, so we're going to need to wait for one of them to come out before we can head down there. But when we go into the mine, if you decide you do not like it for whatever reason, you can turn around and come back out at any point. So if you decide that you suddenly find you've got claustrophobia you didn't know about, you just turn around and come back out. If you find you have no interest in mining history, well, you've come to the wrong area, but if you're bored, yes, you can turn around and come back out at any point. We've got a couple of youngsters on the tour, so I will mention to you.
You alright, mate?
You okay, Dad? Good. You alright, Dad?
Thanks, so.
Section, yeah. Because I reckon you've all probably looked and realised that we have a big lump of rusty metal in there. But I would like you to ignore that for a moment and look behind it. See that great big black wall at the back there?
Yeah.
Doesn't look very impressive, does it? However, it is the reason we came down here in the first place. Because what you're looking at there is the coal face. That is what coal looks like before we dig it out of the ground. And that stuff has been there for a very long time. I think you've all heard of Tyrannosaurus Rex?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, he died out about 65 million years ago. This stuff has been down here for 300 million years. So it's been down here for a very long time. This stuff was here way before the dinosaurs had evolved. You know what was actually running around on the planet back in those days? Giant insects. We had dragonflies with 4-foot wingspans. We had centipedes who could have ridden on like horses, which actually sounds quite cool. Can you imagine having a giant centipede to ride around on? Be one of the coolest people around, I can tell you that. Yeah, so very different planet than what we are on today. But how do we know these things were around? Because we've actually found them in the coal face. Not the actual animals, we have found fossils in there. Because the way that coal forms, it's layers and layers of vegetation on top of each other, and so over millions of years they get squashed together. It is actually quite a good way of preserving fossils. However, the way we dig the coal out is pretty destructive, and we'll probably destroy most of them before we even know they're there. But we have found some of them without destroying them, and it's one of the reasons we know what was around back in those days. So not only is coal very important as being a source of fuel, maybe more so in the past than it will be moving forward, but it is also very important because it is a record of how life evolved on this planet. Anyway, back to the machine. I've already mentioned it is called a Cisco core. However, is that the tools are a lot more primitive. They basically consist of a pick and a shovel. Now the way you use the tools is fairly self-explanatory. You have the coal face, you hit it with a pick until it breaks. Once it's broken up, again with your shovel, take the coal from here, and start placing it into a coal tub like that one. Now that coal tub will hold 800 weight of coal. You are down here for an 8-hour shift, and in that time we would expect you to be able to fill a minimum of 8 to 10 of those coal tubs, which means you should be able to fill one of them in just under an hour. The job you're doing is piece rate, which means you get paid for how many tubs you fill, which means if you fill, the more tubs you fill, the more money you're going to make. Every time you fill a tub, it will be taken to the top for you by a pit pony. At the top, however, your tub is going to get weighed. It gets weighed to make sure you've got enough coal in it, and if it hasn't got enough coal in it, then you don't get paid for it. So you did have to make sure that your tubs were full before you sent it to the top. But then you're probably looking at the tub there, thinking, well, I can see how much coal is in there, I can judge how much weight is in there, and I'm not going to be sending up a tub under weight. Until you realise that back in 1913, the mine did not look like this. We didn't have electric lights. Our source of light was a miner's lamp. And that means that the conditions you were working in were a bit more like this. Alright, so now can you see how much coal is in your tub?
Can see the tub.
Yeah, that's the issue. So you can understand if you're working in these conditions, tubs could get sent up accidentally underweight. However, as long as every tub that went up to the top was up to weight, you would get paid for it. You're going to get paid 6p per tub, which means if you fill 8 tubs a day, at the end of the week you will be coming out with about 30 shillings, which in today's money is £1.50. It doesn't sound like much, does it? However, we are in 1913, money was worth a little bit more back then, and I can't actually give you an idea of the spending power of your wages, because with me being a miner, there's a couple of things I'm familiar with. I mean, I'm familiar with coal, obviously, but I am also very familiar with alcohol. Would you like me to convert your wages into pints of beer? Well, back in 1913, a pint of beer would cost 2p. Now we are talking proper money here, not that metric nonsense, which you'll never catch on. Real money, 240 pennies in a pound. And it basically means your 30 shillings could buy you 180 pints of beer. It was actually a pretty well paid job. And no, you didn't have to spend it on one beer, there was other things available. Okay, if you like to head back up to the surface.
Is it like an hour?
you walk right along that way, couldn't you? Hey.